But long-term wealth building is more along the lines of I want to acquire a set of stocks of companies I believe in, like Amazon and Apple, or just to name two, and I'm going to put them on my portfolio, and I'm going to sit on these things for like 10 to 20 years.
This episode is brought to you by Portfolio Box, an online portfolio made by creatives for creatives.
No, I don't play around with basketball. I don't fool around with that. I'm very serious about it. But it's enjoyable for me to play the game. But I love winning. To win, you kind of have to grind it out sometimes.
Hey everyone, hope you guys are having an amazing start to the year. As we kick off the new month of February 2021, we're talking all things money, and we're talking with somebody who knows a little bit about money, with Steve Ankerstar joining me today. Steve served 20 years as an Air Force fighter pilot. Now he serves his clients and their families in both cultivating and persevering their wealth and financial well-being. We're going to be touching base on all things stocks, what to look out for, and how to execute with precision in the stock market. That and much more. Stay locked in. All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're switching gears a little bit, and we're starting 2021 on a financial note, I guess, because everything that's happening. If you haven't been paying attention to the news, we're talking money to start off the new year, and who better else to bring on board to start the new month of February? Financial guru and Air Force pilot. I have Steve Ankerstar joining me today, and before we kind of dive in and talk money, let's get to know you a little bit, Steve, and tell us about your time in the Air Force and how you got into this point on just talking money.
Yeah, you bet. Steve Ankerstar here, everyone. Thanks so much for having me on your show today. I started off actually investing before the Air Force. I was in high school when my parents kind of got me started in investing. They said, hey, we need you to get a job. And I was like, well, my normal job is to get good grades, and I've been doing that. And they said, well, actually, you need like a summer job so we can, you can make money to invest, and then we're going to match that money into investing. So that's how I kind of got started in investing way back in the day. But then as I got towards college, I got an Air Force scholarship and off into the Air Force. And, as cheesy as it is, I saw Top Gun when I was in high school. And I said, you know what?
Yeah,
I want to do that. That looks, I could live that life. And sure enough, went off to college and on into the Air Force and was able to earn a fighter pilot slot, and spent most of my career flying fighters, a couple different versions. And then after 20 years of that, retired to go into the finance business full time. So that kind of leads me to where we are today.
Awesome. And funny enough, you're the third person that has been in the Air Force, and you're the second pilot to be on here. So, it's a trend.
Well, some of your listeners will know that pilots love to talk about themselves more than anything in the world. So you're picking the right folks to be on your podcast.
Awesome. Now, just to correct me if I'm wrong, you started investing at age 16. Is that correct?
That is correct. And depending on the age of your listening audience, there was a show way back when called Family Ties with Michael J. Fox that was all about investing. A high school kid kind of nerding out on investing. And I used to watch that. This was back in the day when we had, 3 channels sitting in the middle of rural Ohio. So there wasn't a whole lot of content like nowadays where you could,
Yeah.
forever, right? So back then, your TVs and your movies had a lot of impact on people's lives, and I was for sure that way. But that's the first exposure I had to the stock market, was watching kind of a silly TV show, and kind of got me hooked. I liked money. I liked the idea of making money, and I liked the idea of getting really wealthy over my lifetime.
Wow. And with that, like, it's you were in the Air Force, and being a fighter pilot, that's awesome. Like, I read your bio, and I'm interested in how does one become a pilot. Now, there's only so many jets that can fly, and I saw some of the stuff you've been doing. The transition from that to what you're doing now, how was that? Is that something where it was easy for you, or is it something where, like, now you're missing that that adrenaline rush? How was that?
Right. There's kind of two questions there to unpack, and I think both are very useful for your listeners, especially your entrepreneurial listeners out there. And then the first one is, how hard is it to become a fighter pilot? Well, it's pretty darn hard. There are a lot of hurdles to jump through. You have to be very good at what you do. You need to get at it every day in order to make it happen. And kind of the same thing I would say for entrepreneurial success is most fail. So therefore, for you to be a success, honestly, the key to it is just really get at it and do something every day. Always be moving forward. Don't worry about failure. Just put that aside and move on to the next thing, and you will get to where you want and be able to meet your goals by having that sort of attitude. So there's really nothing that's going to stop you from getting in your way to success. So that was kind of the key to be able to go from what I would call a nerdy high school kid with a big dream to somebody who's actually living that dream. And then the second part of your question there is where you ask about the transition. And I would say flying fighters and managing money is very similar. And it really all comes down to risk management. And I don't want to get too geeky into it, but anytime that you're flying an airplane, the number one important thing is your own safety and the safety of the airplane. And when you're challenged, you're tasked with, flying downtown over an enemy country and possibly doing some combat work there where people are going to be shooting at you and then coming back home safely. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So you always have to be on top of managing your risk. And it's really the same thing when you get into investing. Especially if you get into individual stocks, which I love that everybody's kind of hopping into the individual stocks, and I know we're going to get into that, but there's a lot of risk and you just really have to pay attention to that risk, and you'll be fine if you do. But you can't, you have to own it. If a stock starts working against you, you need to sell it before you ride it all the way down to zero. Right. So there's lots of things that really apply between the two. And you kind of talk about the adrenaline rush and, like flying fighters for the first time, absolutely. What an adrenaline rush. It was amazing. But after you become a professional fighter pilot, the adrenaline's gone. It's now using your expertise, to maximize the situation. It's kind of the same thing with managing money, where the folks, like you mentioned, hopping in on Robinhood on January 6th. Yeah, it's an adrenaline rush, right? It's new, it's fresh, especially, if you put $500 in and it's worth 600 by the end of the week. I mean, that's the best out there, right? But as the more you do it over the course of a lifetime, now it becomes more of you're just executing what you know how to do. And yeah, it's you want to make money and all that's fantastic, but the need for the adrenaline hit that will get you into more gambling type mentality than necessarily just investing, where you're doing what you need to do to make money over time.
Wow, that's an excellent point right there that you just mentioned, and let's get into it. The word gambling, right? I feel like that's very. I feel like in context where when we speak about adrenaline, that rush, right? And we had that last week, with the whole GameStop fiasco, the Reddit, Army, going full force. Now for the for young listeners, I'm 33, right? So like I mentioned pre-recording, I just got into it first week of the year, right? I'm still learning this, but at what point do we kind of like take a step back and, actually analyze the long game, right? Not the short game. Give us your 2 cents real quick on what happened last week and, going forward, what should new investors look forward to in investing, for the long term?
Yeah, you bet. So much to address there. And you make an important point. Like when you say, you're 33 and just kind of hopped in for the first time. Well, especially for your younger folks out there, is the stock market's a lot like fighter aircraft. It doesn't care your age. It doesn't care your gender, your preferences, your race. It doesn't care any of that stuff. It's also, with a fighter jet is, can you take the machine and fly it and make it yours? Same thing with investing. The math behind investing doesn't care about any of that stuff. So especially for your younger folks out there, you may be the listener that's 18 years old that's got 3 years of experience already, right? And really that's the point to make, is don't be intimidated especially if you're a younger person thinking, oh, that's something older people do. The more you figure this out earlier, the better off you're going to be. And of course, you'll make mistakes along the way. That's not nothing's perfect, if you will. But what I will say on, you mentioned gambling and the rush that you get. Let's go academic for just a second. And the difference between gambling and investing is sometimes lost on people until they really hear these words. So when you think investing, you think the allocation of capital, okay, putting money to work, but it's the allocation of capital with the probability of gain and the possibility of loss. So that means we're putting money into the market, which generally goes up over time. We expect to make money, but we could lose money. Now, gambling is the exact opposite of that. That's the allocation of capital with the expectation of loss, but possibility of gain. So when you think pure like sports gambling or the lotto is probably, or Mega Millions or Powerball is probably the extreme example of that, right? Is you put your $20 and you don't expect to ever see anything again. But the possibility that you might win millions out there keeps you coming back, right? So it's really feeding a different part of your life, whether it's an investment with that probability of gain or a gamble, which is that probability of loss tied into there. So for folks that are, with the Wall Street bets thing and Reddit, and I have clients that actually follow along very closely because, that's like the new latest shiny penny, right? So everybody's watching that.
Yeah.
I don't need to watch that because people are reporting back to me as to what it says, and then I can kind of help them work through that. But any money that you put towards GameStop right now, I mean, that's a gamble, right? And you may make a lot of money doing it and ride the wave. Listen to, Deep Effing Value on Reddit. I'm following, those are the field generals out there, and coming from the military. As soon as I heard this Reddit thing breaking out, I was like, okay, find out who the top 10 generals are and only listen to them. Right. There's going to be like, it's almost like a cult. It's find out who the cult leadership is, find out what they're doing, follow that. Don't listen to the other 4 million yahoos that are just running around like they think they're all of a sudden experts. Right. But it's if you're into that and it's exciting, that's okay. Just remember, it is real money at the end of the day, and you're trying to make your money go up over time, not just throw it away on something. So really take that long-term perspective. Keep that in mind.
So, I mean, we're not, I wouldn't say we are giving you financial advice, but what are your thoughts on as far as if people are actually just getting started and they're actually looking at GameStop, AMC, and all these other ones, should they waste their time with these, or should they just actually maybe just see where it's going with that? It's, and not just these stocks in general, but we have all these other things going on that the big boys, right? They're seeing like how the internet works now, right? So what are your thoughts on should people even pay attention to these, or is it just like you say, right? Just a gamble, right?
Well, yes, and so an involved answer there. And so I'll give a quick disclaimer up first that since I do manage money professionally, this is a financial education presentation. You have to do your own due diligence before you act upon anything I say here today. And full disclaimer information is available at ototnow.com. Now, with that out of the way, I think that there's a couple lessons. So first of all, I think Wall Street is beginning to appreciate the flash mob mentality. In other words, social media and the power of people coming together instead of you, the billionaire moving a stock. It's like, well, take thousandaires and band them together, right? And if they get focused, I mean, there's your billion, right? You can do this. The power of money. It's kind of like water. I like to say it has to go somewhere and has a lot of power behind it. That's what we're seeing out of the Wall Street bets movement, and it could have been Facebook, it could have been an Instagram page, really anywhere where people connect and with a vision and you have some power. Now, relating that back to, individual stocks and individual stocks, I'm 51. So largely from a different environment, but I'd like to think that my mentality is very much young because I'm on the cutting edge of technology and very, into what today's younger folks are into. And I see it that back in my day, in the 80s, you were told, get into mutual funds, get into index funds, Wall Street's smart, you're dumb. Give them your money, pay your fees, and be done with it. And I'm glad to see that being turned on its head. That's one of the reasons why I went into business in 2013, is because I was tired of people saying, well, we're smart and you're dumb, so hand over your money. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work like that. That doesn't resonate well. And I know it doesn't resonate well with the younger folks out there. Yeah, you got to be kidding me, right? Just because you're old and you live in New York City means you know everything. That's just not true. So as you go into individual stocks, there's some higher risk there, but it's certainly not dangerous. But if you're going to invest in something long term, and this is what I tell my clients, whether they're in their 80s or in their teens, is that a stock is part ownership of a company. So when you're buying a stock, you're really looking to, do I really want to be part of the leadership team of this company? I mean, albeit a very small part, I get you. But when you think of something you want to be a part of, like I like Apple. It's a luxury tech firm. It's the best out there. They charge too much for their phones, but people, stand in line to buy them. I like that. Highly addictive product with a moat that is a must-have sort of thing. I think Amazon's a fantastic company that provides stuff right to our door during the middle of a pandemic. That's why, I get 3 deliveries a day. Those are things you really look at, right? I mean, those are things you look to invest in. When you think it's just like, hey, Rodrigo, come here, bud. I got a business plan for you. Why don't we invest our money in a brick and mortar software store when everybody can go online and with the click of a button just download the software? But why don't we open a bunch of stores and have people actually come to us, and we could package the software on like a disc or something, and it's like, you'd be like, Steve, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And it is. That's the blockbuster of old. And that's what so when people are investing in the stock now, just realize you're doing what's called momentum trading, which is different than investing. People that are in it now don't believe in the long-term prospects of GameStop, or I hope they don't. Maybe they do. I'm sure there's some out there that think, brick and mortar's coming back. I think they'd be wrong. But it's a market. But if you're doing momentum trading, which means when something's in motion, you can put your money into it and take the ride up, take the ride down, or however you want to play it, because there's different avenues to be able to do so. But that's really very different from, that's trying to make some dollars. Like, you get out of bed this morning and you're like, I'm going to try to make $200-300 today. And you're like, okay, that's a good day's work, right? And if you can do it in the market in 15 minutes, that's good on you. Then you can do whatever you want the rest of the day. But long-term wealth building is more along the lines of, I want to acquire a set of stocks of companies I believe in, like Amazon and Apple, or just to name 2, and I'm going to put on my portfolio, and I'm going to sit on these things for like 10 to 20 years. And as long as that company's kicking butt, then that stock's going to go up over time. I don't care what it looks like on Tuesday or Wednesday. I care what it looks like 5 and 10 years from now. And those companies have bright futures. That's more of a long-term investor's mindset. And that's really how people get wealthy, is they buy stuff and that's going to go up, and then they sit on it for a while. Not necessarily, doing the old gunslinger routine, trading in and out of stocks, because, as soon as you sell it and you make your money, then you don't have it anymore, if that makes sense.
That's perfect. And I feel like with everything happening right now, I feel like everybody's playing, that momentum trading game, right? It's like, today, how much am I going to make today? I think the mindset should be, tomorrow, and, the long game, I think, especially for younger people, like, it's more about right now. But, I feel, me being 33, I got 3 kids. I'm living good. I'm not, in my parents' house and give away all my stimulus money, right? That I think it's like the perfect storm, right? It's like, you got money, you got these kids, right? They're just pushing what they see. I think pretty much social media, right? Where it's just like you have these groups, and that could be a dangerous thing, and not to get too much into the crypto, but we're seeing that stuff on that side. So I mean, I feel like that long-term game is like the way to go.
Yeah, I think you're saying some wise words there. And when you think long term, especially like in your situation, since I tend to talk to individuals on a regular basis, 33 with 3 kids, you're out there and you're getting it done, right? But there's there's get it done mode, and then there's get it done as well as set money aside for that money to continue to grow. So when you're 50, 60 or so, you're not still in just get it done mode, right? Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
Building that wealth over time. And it's interesting. I mean, you can go in and make some money doing momentum trading. Lots of people do. Lots of people have this week. But trading's kind of a zero sum game. So if you're making it, somebody else has to be losing it, and you're playing a game that a lot of smart people are playing. So you kind of have to be good at it. If you're not, you're going to get knocked out and lose a bunch of money. But if you're good, you can make money. There's no doubt. And what I think is if you mentioned crypto, and to it, that's like a whole nother casino,
Yeah.
right? Or the I like to use drug analogies, not condoning drug use, but from a drug analogy, you have your gateway drugs, and then taking it to a whole nother level, right? Is so if you're making money doing momentum trading on GameStop, then good on you, but going off and trading around the clock in the altcoins, okay, yeah, you're full junkie at that point, right?
I think that's funny, man, because with this dog coin,
Yeah.
just I feel like it's, to me, it's very, I like to just go along with what the internet's going. So there's the whole dog coin. It's actually just people trolling at this point. I'm not saying not to invest in, or we're not saying to invest in dog coin, but cryptocurrency, I feel for personally, there's a future there, but there's a whole bunch of stuff. I feel like there's a lot of trolling on the internet. And I feel like, if you're not, if you don't have a mentor, or if you're just, going with the wave, it could be very dangerous.
Yeah, I think that what I hear you say there is that you got to step back every now and then and kind of ask yourself what you're doing. And then that's where it's easy if you're the owner of shares. And I have CNBC, of course, off in the distance here, and I just saw Google pop up. That would be another name that's just too easy to invest in, right? It's just like, oh, I don't know. I Google things like 50 times a day. YouTube owns Google, Google owns YouTube. And I'm on there quite a bit. It's kind of that seems like a good place to allocate capital versus, altcoins, right? That we don't really know. I bet you, I can't guarantee it, but, I think Google will be around in 10, 20, 30 years. The dog coin and the rest of the altcoins out there, and Cardano, if I'm saying that right, or, I monitor all that stuff on Twitter because I like to know what people are chattering about. But you're right, it can be crazy, and I don't know the end game of that. So you're certainly taking a higher risk, and there's people that follow that stuff and they make money on it. But much like anything else, it's the people that are in there first are generally going to make the money. If it's already moved and you're kind of catching up to the game, which is the rest of the herd, those are generally the people that get hurt. So you kind of need, if you're going to play that game, you need to move yourself early. You need to get to the cutting edge of it. So you're in early on things. So that way you have choices to kind of leave instead of being the last one to buy into it, if that makes sense.
Hey, are you a photographer, designer, artist, architect, model, musician, or even a makeup artist? You gotta check out Portfolio Box. With Portfolio Box, you're not forced to use any standard theme. You can use any style for any page and create a truly unique website that reflects you and your work. If you're a creative, it's a no-brainer. Get 50% off for 12 months on all plans with promo code ROD50. That's promo code ROD50. And check out portfoliobox.net today. So with this crazy month that we just had, how's that affecting your side of things? You do have a YouTube channel, you do have a podcast. How's that going for you right now?
Well, the bread and butter of my life is my financial management company. So it's Afterburner Financial. But what I found with that is once I build out my client base and it's just me, I work from home, and I worked from home before working from home was cool. So when I retired from, I've got kids too, and I was gone so much in the military, I wanted to be around them. So I took a entire bedroom upstairs and gutted it out and put it in my home office and opened my own business. And there were some folks, as being a lifelong investor, there were folks that I had mentored for years that became clients. And so that's really the bread and butter of what I do. That pays all the bills. And then of course I have my own investments, which, you have to be good at investing. You have to be good at whatever business it is to stay in the business.
Yeah.
And for it's investing. So, I can live off of that if I ever needed to, or when I choose to step away. Where the podcast and the YouTube channel came from are people. First of all, clients kept asking me the same questions, like, with the Wall Street bets this week. They're like, dude, what's your take on Wall Street bets and GameStop? So I could either answer 100 clients individually 20 minutes at a time, which would all my time, right? And then I would not be looking at like Apple and Amazon and Google and all the other good things that are out there. So what I will do is anticipate my client questions. I will get in front of that and talk for every morning that the market's open. So weekday mornings, I take to the mic on YouTube with a crew that they do pay a little subscription fee. It's $25 a month. It's just something for being there. We talk this over for half an hour, and then I publish that recording and send the link out to my clients. So generally, I'm trying to mind read what's, kind of like I said, if you're going to make money in the, altcoins, you got to get to the early stages. I'm trying to get my clients on kind of the cutting edge of what's going on out there and my take on it. So I'm trying to get in front of their questions. And then the same thing with, that's kind of the daily headline type questions for the podcast. When people, 3 or 4 people ask me, it's like, hey, how much money should I have at age 33? It's like, well, I can explain that to you. It takes about 20 minutes, but I have on my podcast right now, all the titles are questions, and they're there so you can search for your question and just listen to that, and you'll be good to go. And then that way, if I talk to somebody afterwards, they've already heard that. So they kind of already know the big picture answer. Then I can kind of fine tune it to their situation. So it allows me, the YouTube channel and the podcast allows me to help anybody who wants to listen along that that generally may or may not qualify to be one of my clients, or, just want to learn more. So they put me on in the background while they're working out or they're driving or whatever, and they listen, and hopefully they gather some things from me talking that they're like, either they learn something or it gives them something to think.
Yeah, because I noticed, you uploaded an episode this morning, so you have that going. So when you wake up in the morning, what does Steve do? What does he check his phone? What's going on with GameStop? Or does he write a script for his next YouTube video? What does Steve do in the morning? As a financial guru.
Well, honestly, it's the same thing every day. I wake up between 6 and 7. I don't set an alarm because I've always woken up at that time. So I'll wake up somewhere in that time and grab my phone like many other people do. And I check everything from both email accounts, my business account, as well as my personal account, kind of see if anybody has any questions, client maintenance, if you will. And if clients are good to go, no questions came in overnight or anything I need to answer right away, then I'm right into my research for the day. So generally, I'm into research pretty quick. And every morning before the market opens or before I go on microphone, I've done at least an hour of reading. I generally do it from bed where I'm the most comfortable. So I'll sit there and, on my phone, or I have a tablet sometimes that I use, and go through everything and really kind of study what's in the headlines, has Elon Musk tweeted and what did he tweet? And how's that going to, hit Chamath on, if I'm saying that right, on Twitter, kind of the big players out there. What's everybody saying? What's going on? What are the headlines of the day? And then after I study all that, I'll think about what's my theme of the day. So I think of my client group. What are their questions going to be today? Today it was silver, right? This week it was the Wall Street bets is making a run on silver. So it's like okay, well, I know I'm going to do something on silver this morning. So basically, formulate my opinions, and then I come into the office at around half an hour prior to the market open, fire everything up. And then 15 minutes to the market open is when I have everything ready to go. I have all my clients that are subscribed to me in the morning for the room. They're all in the room. It's a Zoom webinar, if you will. And I flick on the camera and we go from there. So that takes me to about 15 minutes after the market's open. So again, 30 minutes on the mic there, talking real time, looking at real charts, real questions that's coming in through the chat window. And then, again, 15 minutes after the market open, that goes off, and I have a system that automatically uploads that to YouTube. So I really don't worry about it after that. And then I'm off to my day job, if you will. So it's a pretty slick setup. And what I've told folks is that's really what I would be doing anyway. I get up early, I research, I make my decisions for the day, and then I go in and execute my day job. So it was very natural to be able to do a YouTube channel that way.
That's awesome. And, the reason I like to ask, my guests, what goes on behind the scenes, right? And that's what a lot of, the audience, for example, they're curious to know, what does one do behind the scenes? Now, in your case, you're doing the research, right? You're doing the bullet points, what's going to be, talked about. You're making your decisions ahead. You're already ahead of the game. By noon, you're already done. You're just letting it, on autopilot. No pun intended. But you're pretty much, what happens behind the scenes is, I think, that's just key, right? There's a lot that goes into it. Pretty much, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot that goes into before you see what you see, right? And I appreciate, especially, you, where you're putting in the work, already in the morning, and, doing your due diligence on, researching and so on. So I'm just curious on what you do behind the scenes. But one thing I did want to mention is that you and me have something in common.
All right.
And I did notice that you have a Mamba Mentality book, Kobe book, behind you. And I have one right here just on my shelf right now. And being that this kind of podcast is kind of inspired by Kobe, because I'm a big Kobe fan, Laker fan.
Absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit on how Kobe inspired you.
Well, I think that's a great point to bring up to folks, because if you don't have, and it can be anything really, or any person really, but if you don't have somebody that really inspires you, that you can kind of look to on a daily basis, when things get dark, or you're kind of feeling lazy, you really need that inspiration out there. And I'll back it up a little bit with kind of what I said there. There was that TV show in the 80s that I used to look forward to and really kind of get into and think, okay, I want that out of life. And then, of course, Top Gun. Not only did I see it when I was a junior in high school, but I kept watching it right until I actually got there. That was my motivation. And I'm of the age, being 51, and of course, especially with the tragedy that happened last year, losing Kobe and his daughter in an aviation accident, of all things. It was I don't know exactly how the math works, but I was probably a man in my mid-20s. I'm 6'5". I played basketball, my whole life. Wasn't good enough to play in college, but I continued to play.
Wow.
I continued to play into my 40s and watch the NBA, and it was all Laker. Kind of the original Lakers, if you will. And then, here comes Kobe, right? And it's just like, oh, what a dream to watch. And I'm a, Kobe over Michael Jordan any day kind of guy, even though most of my age a pure Michael Jordan fans, and I get that. He's obviously a player, but I like Kobe myself, and I'm not ready to hand the reins to LeBron, even though LeBron's probably going to shatter every record out there. But so I'm right at that core where I watched Kobe from that 18-year-old or 19-year-old, or exactly when he went from right into the NBA at such an early age, and the look on his face and how there was no doubt in his mind. You could tell it before he shot the ball. It literally put the cameras on him, and you knew when it's coming down the line, the ball's going to Kobe. He could be double or triple covered, and it didn't matter. And he knew that ball was going in before he even took the jump to shoot the ball. And it was that sort of mentality. I was so attracted to that, and I was so fired up by that. That kind of led to when I'm trying to, I'm at pilot training, I'm trying to get into a fighter, I'm trying to prove to my superiors that I'm fast enough, good enough, have quick enough hand-eye coordination, I have a killer instinct. There's going to be no doubt that it's going to be their best decision to put me in the game, in combat, when they need something to happen. And, I relied on Kobe just from, watching him play and reminding myself, be like Kobe, be like Kobe. It was, and then later on, as you saw Kobe kind of grow as an individual and start to say more kind of, instead of just getting stuff done, but start to say things like, be a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today. Those sorts of things. And then watching him go on and, once towards the end of basketball, when you made a short movie, and I know you've done some film projects yourself, watching his movie short where he won an award for. I mean, what an amazing, just entire embodiment of not only athletic capability, but from an accomplishment perspective. Just loved everything about Kobe.
Did you kind of think about how he transitioned from basketball to pretty much storytelling? Did you think of, like, as far as when you transitioned from, being a fighter pilot to, to the finance game? Did that ever cross your mind how, how those, maybe you kind of mirror that kind of like that same killer instinct?
Well, I think I viewed it instead of killer instinct. I mean, there's drive to success in anything you do. That's one part of it, but I also like it from the creative perspective, and that you have somebody that was more of a technician, which I would consider flying fighters like playing basketball. I mean, it's a very, it's almost a sport. There's all these things you need to know to execute and be at the absolute top of your game. Mm-hmm. Then when you step into like yourself with filmmaking or some of your other creatives that are listening, that's the unconstrained environment. That's you have everything at your disposal, and you can take it in any direction. And that's where I think, I liked it with the investing, is I was going to continue kind of the technical side of that with making people money, which I love doing. And that's my core competency, if you will. But I also had this creative side, which led to the YouTube and the podcast channel of, I can get out there and tell stories, and maybe these stories motivate others, or, shed a different light on things by talking about, the difference between gambling and investing. If that resonates with people, that's how now I can help people, is through using my voice and experience. And I think that's what Kobe did. And when you look at it, especially professional athletes who are, if you will, retired at a fairly young age, meaning most of them have, decades left behind them, is what do you do at that time? Do you continue to make society a better place, or do you hang out in your mansion and put on weight and not do much anything with your time, right? So yeah. So it's really kind of the, what does phase 2 look like, and go get yours. And that's where I think Kobe inspires, me and so many others out there.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, it's you could always take something from Kobe's book. So, I've started kind of putting a quote from Kobe on the beginning of each episode, because he was a big influence in my life. So yeah, so that's a good stuff right there. On the great Kobe. Moving on to just kind of, I have a question actually for you. Have you heard, or have you even considered going on Clubhouse? Do you even know what that is?
I do. I do know what it is. And again, it's, in investing, my job is, and one thing I love about this job is I'm always, I need to stay on the cutting edge of everything. And that's where I want to be. That's where I want to live my life. Right. So sure enough, Parlor come and go. Right. And, and then signals out there, for secure messaging. And then you have this Clubhouse rolls out. And, of course I have a pretty decent sized following, not influencer level, but, it decent numbers as far as my social media platforms, and people are inviting me onto Clubhouse. And so far I have not participated, but I do follow along what it is. And then I think, Elon Musk, obviously being the richest person in the world, and also being fairly young, if not in actual years, I consider him, like myself, young at heart, if you will, and in touch with people, right? And he gets it. Yeah. And he was on Clubhouse, Sunday night. What was that, last night, for the first time?
Last night.
Yeah, that brings so much legitimacy to it. It's kind of like, gone at Elon, now I got to go on there, right? Because at first I viewed it as, I don't need another social media platform, just because, each one takes a bit of time, right? But so I haven't been on it yet, but I may have to now, especially if Elon Musk is going to be a regular on Clubhouse.
Yeah, I just feel like, because, we're talking on the cutting edge of technology. I feel like, with last year, pandemic and everything, it's pushing, different industries to different directions. And I feel like, I've always said that 2020, fast forward is like 5 years forward. And I feel like this Clubhouse thing is pretty much the future now of what seminars are going to be. But you don't have to pay $10,000 for it, to get that front seat.
Right. And then I think what COVID-19 did, like you just said, was it forced people out of their comfort zone. So business, my business did very well. largely because I didn't have to adjust to working from home. I had already done that. That's how
Yeah.
I've been doing for years. But people in traditional client advisor relationships that are, they meet in person, they have martini luncheons and all that stuff you kind of see on TV. It's just like, if you want to, they can't do that anymore. It's just like, if you want to get down to the nuts and bolts of just making money very efficiently, then give me a call. And so I think everybody out there, including the restaurants and the creative delivery systems that people had in this, very efficient, order through your phone, park in the designated parking spot, all of that, you're right, step up the advancements in that area. Yeah, I don't know if it's 5 years or not, but certainly, significantly, right? So
Yeah.
from an entrepreneur's perspective, I probably would not have started my podcast had COVID-19 not happened, because it actually freed up a bunch of time for me. I couldn't
Exactly.
travel with my family. My kids, both my girls play volleyball. All that stuff got canceled. So here I am sitting in my home office and already had built my home studio for doing some interviews. And it's just like, okay, boom. Here, the podcast I've been thinking about for 6 years, it's starting now, right? And I was ready to go. So for the entrepreneurs out there, hopefully 2020 was a great year. It allowed everybody to kind of pivot and shake them out of their comfort zone, and hopefully it was a positive thing for many people.
Yeah, and with that, I feel like, working from home, I'm working from home, and that you force yourself, right, to what can you do, right? You're not gonna just sit around and just do nothing. And I feel like this year, I think a lot of people, they got that message, and I think that's gonna really help them propel their careers and their future decisions. We'll see where all this goes, as far as the stock market and the financial industry. But with that, what are your links to all your YouTube, your podcast, for people to contact you or to listen?
Yeah, you bet. If you want to hear more of my voice, I basically have all kinds of content out there for you. The podcast is ototnow.com, or you can just Google On Time On Target podcast. You'll find it either way. But the OTOT stands for On Time On Target, which is the name of the podcast and the YouTube channel. So either one of those will get you, that website will get you to either the podcast or the YouTube channel. If you're interested in business opportunities, I have a $100,000 minimum. So somebody has to obviously have significant assets to be able to reach out to me for money management. But that's afterburner-financial.com. And again, I kept the Afterburner name from flying fighter jets. And my wife gives me a hard time. She says, you just couldn't let go completely. And I'm like, you're right about that. Let go. Like,
Hey,
yeah, kept.
I love the name. I love the name Afterburner. That's just cool. Just off the bat, you can't say anything bad about it. It just sounds cool.
Oh, well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And for your listeners out there, if you just want to see cool airplane pictures, check out my website. Maybe you find some finance stuff of interest too. But I also have good-looking jet pictures involved. So, and I'm on all the social medias. Basically, I'm about the only Ankerstar out there. There's only, I think, 9 of us in the United States. So, hit my last name up and you'll find me. I'd love to connect with y'all.
Perfect, Steve. Awesome. That was great advice. Great to have you on, and we'll see where the rest of the year goes. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so much for having me on, and everybody stay strapped in, because 2021 could be just as crazy as 2020.
There it is, guys. There it is. All right, we'll see you guys on the next one. And don't forget to subscribe and check out the latest episodes on the website. Follow us on social media at Hardwood Rod. And don't forget, every Tuesday we got the latest and greatest. So stay locked in. Would you like to be on the podcast? Got something to talk about? Make sure to head over to the website at hardwoodrod.com. Leave your name and the topic you'd like to discuss, and I'll add you to the calendar.